There we go. The magic of the internet coming at you one more time. Welcome, everyone. I'm Dan Schmidt. This is another episode of Deer Talk Now. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to ask Ian, my crack producer here. Ian, you know my love affairs are deer hunting, rabbit hunting, fishing a little bit. Do you remember what my first job when I came to Iola was?
No, was it?
For 5 months.
This wasn't the. Oh, was it a groceries?
No, in Iola. I moved up to Crossbow Publications. I worked for Blade Magazine for like 5 months.
Oh, with the knives.
And knives. Have you seen this?
No, what is that?
This is that new Outdoor Edge. They have it's called Everyday Carry.
Okay.
You know you can carry these legally, by the way, in Wisconsin and Minnesota with our guests we're going to introduce here in a minute. This is called the Razor VX4. If you guys know Outdoor Edge, check these out. I'm not going to tell you anything more other than this thing's not leaving my pocket. It's $69. That is a very nice knife. I just got that today. I had to show you guys. It's got a assist on it. Very cool knife. Okay, so today we have special guests in, not in the studio, but over the airlines here. We've got Sam Bergeson and Paul Landberg from Wildlife Research Center. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff today. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Deer Talk Now.
Oh.
See, now I'm going to make
Thanks,
you both,
Matt.
you're going to be interrupting each other. It's like, up, you know, it's going to be, I don't know who gets to talk first, but I know it's a beautiful day in Minnesota. This is airing, I believe, May 1st for the original airing. Have you guys been out there turkey? I know we're talking deer hunting today, but have you been out turkey hunting yet?
He's just out this morning, Dan.
Oh,
I just made
nice.
it here in time.
Nice. Did you get one?
No, I had 4 jakes come in. So
I would have been done.
Insanity time.
Yeah, I would have been done, but that's just me. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We had actually talked about the subject for today's show a couple months ago, and it's one that a lot of deer and deer hunting TV viewers have seen Steve Bartilla play with, especially on his ancillary videos, Grow 'em Big, Hunt 'em Big, Deertopia. But we're calling this creating a trophy buck playground, and I know you guys coined that term based off of the various products that wildlife offers. However, we're going to talk about products, but we want to talk more about. I know, Sam, you probably get sick of me talking about this, but your dad kind of started this craze as a trapper back in the '80s with oh gosh, you're gonna have to Trail's End. He came up with that scent as a trapper, and then all of a sudden realized he can start attracting deer. Well, that morphed over the past 30 plus years into you guys have created scents and accessories that can actually keep bucks around longer on your property. Isn't that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Sam specifically. Let's go back. I know a lot of you guys aren't as old as I am, but I remember when his dad and his uncle started, they were trappers, and they realized they were getting deer to basically come to their trap sets. How did that happen?
The story goes back even further. When they were kids, they lived in kind of a rural area, and my grandfather offered them a bounty of a nickel a mouse for every mouse they could catch around the house. And they tried different things. And in the cartoons, they showed cheese as the perfect bait for mice, and they figured out that didn't work quite as well as it did in the cartoons. But they tried other things, and and we're catching mice, and that kind of sparked an interest in trapping and scents and stuff like that over the years. And then as they got older, they were kind of self-taught trappers. They got, magazines like Fur Fishing Game and some of the other ones that were really popular, and they just read everything they could about trapping and scents, and they'd try different stuff. There was one time my grandpa drove my grandma and my dad and my uncle up north, dropped them off for a whole week to live in a tent with the family dog while he was at work for the week, and they were out trying trapping and whatnot. And it just kind of developed from there. And then over the years, they were trying different scent products, different things for the trapping scents, and they started seeing that certain ingredients that maybe weren't conventional for deer were attracting deer. They'd start seeing deer tracks around their trapping scents, that it was bringing them in. That kind of was intriguing to them, and they started messing around with that, trying different things. And there really wasn't a lot of options available back then for deer scents. And they started making different concoctions, trying different things out. You know, when they were younger, they'd send my grandpa up with different blends for him and his hunting buddies to try. And then as they got older, they were trying different things. And so yeah, our first product was Trails N 307, and that's because it was roughly the 307th iteration that they thought really hit the mark as far as attracting deer. And
It was
what's
their
kinda unique about it-
307th like recipe of it.
Yes.
I don't
Yep.
think I actually knew
Yep.
that. Wow.
Roughly. I don't know if they knew quite exactly, but right in that ballpark. So that's why it's called Trails N 307.
I knew some of those other stories. You had shared those with me in the past, and I know that they were just like really kind of like mad scientists when it came to this stuff. But then
Yeah.
when did they come out with the Magnum scrape dripper? Was that still in the 80s?
I think it was the late 80s. Because, you know, during college and whatnot, they started a tree service to help get through that. And then that was kind of their trade for a long while, you know, and they were pretty into it. They had all the equipment, the stump grinders, the bucket trucks, all that stuff. And, you know, and then it crossed their mind that they should go to market with this Trails N 307. And my dad read a lot about, you know, mail order sales and marketing and all kinds of different stuff. So the first year they launched it, they spent $10,000 on print advertising, and they thought they, based on the circulations of the magazines, that if 1 out of 100 people ordered a bottle of Trails N 307, they were going to be doing really good. And that first year they sold 100 bottles, and you know, if you do the math, that didn't quite work out perfect, but it was a start. And you know, they kept working at it, and they had to work really hard at it. I mean, they had to go and knock on doors and talk to shops, and they got turned away a lot, and just kept going and going and going. But slowly over time, built up the business and made progress. And at the beginning, they were running the tree service along with the, you know, with Wildlife Research Center when it first started. And you know, they'd be working in the middle of the winter doing tree work, and they'd be out there all day in the cold, and you just get chilled to the bone. And at the end of the day, they'd come home, and you know, my dad lived in an old farmhouse that was over 100 years old, so it wasn't very well insulated and whatnot. So he'd go in the bathroom and he'd run a hot bath or a hot shower to try to just warm his bones up and sit for a little bit. And my stepmother had a bottle of shampoo. It was a big bottle with a pump on the top that was sitting on the edge of the tub. And he'd look at that, and you know, the bathroom would be really cold because it was on an outside wall, and then that warm water would kind of heat up the bathroom, and you'd see that, and all of a sudden it would start pushing shampoo, a little bit of shampoo out of that pump
Wow.
every day. And he just kept watching that day after day, week after week, and kind of thinking about how it worked. And you know, the way it was working is there was an air pocket inside there, and as it would heat up, you know, the laws of pressure and gases and all that, as it would heat up, it would expand, and it would push a little bit of that soap out each day, and you would see it just keep happening over and over again. And he started kind of thinking about it. And scrape hunting is one of the best ways to hunt trophy bucks. You know, you can go out there, you can find a spot where there's a trail, where you're seeing deer action and whatnot. But if you have a scrape, that's a spot they're visiting over and over again, and you get a consistency with that, and you can pattern, especially the bigger bucks. And there was some products on the market at the time that were drippers, but they just kind of did a constant drip, you know, so you could put it out there and it could last for several days or a long period of time. But you know, the problem with that is you know, it might attract the deer during the day when you're out on deer stand. It might attract them at night when you can't hunt them. And he kind of put 2 and 2 together after watching this all that time, that you could come up with something that would dispense liquid when it warmed up, and it warms up during the day and it cools down at night. So he figured out that he could create a device that would drip scent during the daytime only, and then over time condition bucks to visit that during daytime hours. You know, if you're dripping doe urine with doe and estrus on the scrape, that buck's looking to intercept that doe. And you know, if it's getting dripped on during the day, the deer can tell how long that scent has been there, and if it's been a while, they start adjusting their time. And a lot of times those bucks get nocturnal, especially when there's a little bit of pressure. But if they know that doe they're chasing after is coming around during the day, they'll adjust their their pattern to intercept that doe. Um, anyways, so yeah, they were looking at that, and he spent a lot of time experimenting and doing different things, trying to figure out how to put that into a workable device that we could bring to market. And eventually came up with the ultimate scrape dripper. And we launched that, and that was one of the first products that really kind of helped us become a national company. We got into some of the bigger retailers and got the attention of retailers all over the country with that, because it was something really novel, really different, and really neat. And then over time, we had that. We've come out with a lot of scrape scents and different things that you could use with it. And eventually we came out with the Magnum Scrape Dripper, a newer iteration of that goes for even longer. The original one would go for about 7 to 10 days. The Magnum Scrape Dripper can go for 2 to 3 weeks under normal daytime, nighttime temperature swings. So again, as it heats up during the day, it dispenses scent, and then at night it shuts down. Normally during rain and bad weather, you don't have the temperature increase, so it saves your scent when you're not out there hunting. And yeah, it's just an amazing tool, because the less you're out there disturbing the environment and leaving human scent behind, the better the chances are of the deer coming in. So you can set that up and let it go for 2 to 3 weeks, and you can refill it. Our active scrape and golden scrape are our most popular scents to use in there, but you can really use just about anything. You can use Trails N307 early in the year. You can use Special Golden Estrus.
I want to get to that in a minute. I don't want to cut you off, because I actually have those questions. But what I find fascinating is, when I call them mad scientists, and that's how most of the manufacturers in this industry, I know just about everybody, and that's how they keep guys that made tree stands, guys that made, whatever product. But you said it was a novel idea. Well, it kind of was, but, and I know, Paul, you did, because I met Paul, through the magazine 20 years ago, when he was an aspiring writer. He wanted to be like an aspiring Leela Koski or a Don Kiski or somebody like that, and he was killing big bucks, but it was the trial and error when people actually used it and said, this actually works, right, Paul? I mean, this stuff works, and that's what really propelled that one idea into something that helped spur other ideas.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny. I met Brian and John Bergerson, the founders of the company, probably 25 years ago when I was working at a bank. They were actually my customers. And that's where I met those guys, and just kind of stayed in touch with them over the years. So as they'd come up with different things, I was able to, try different products along the way. I was actually, as a bow hunter, I was always the guy that was, I don't want to smell like anything. So the scent killer gold was my deal, right? I stayed away from most other things just because I was so worried about scent. So I was a big scent killer gold guy, and of course, clothes wash and all those things are super important to me. But yeah, I've known these guys forever, and just started here a little over a year ago. So it's kind of funny how things work.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, about because I was the exact same guy. Gary Clancy, rest his soul, one of the most genuine guys I've ever known. If you guys don't know him, just Google his name. Incredible hunter, incredible writer. And he told me, he said, Dan, you're not going to start killing big bucks. He told me this 30 years ago, until you take that total scent-free approach. That's a topic for a different show. But then once I started doing that, and I started messing with some of this other stuff, then I started having success. So we get to a scrape dripper. I also want to tell you guys, anybody who's listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, I'm not sitting there hawking all those products. Basically, there's products that work. And what I want to do, because I get these questions all the time, and that's why I kind of cut Sam short there, is they're like, when should I use, I'm like, I have Trails End, or I wanted to try the Golden Rope or Active Scrape or some of these other scents. It's almost overwhelming. I'm like, you don't have to use them all. You could use one. You could use a combination, which is what I do a lot. But it all starts with that scrape, I think, because that was the thing that started them along this process. Like Sam said, his dad, his uncle, and his family, they were trappers, also deer hunters, stumbled into this like, hey, we're actually onto something, and then started adding things, and now you've got this whole menu of different things, tools, I'd say, that you can use. Number one, I want to start with the tools, and the first one was the Magnum Scrape Dripper. I did not know that story about the shower. That is amazing, and that's how most products are created. The second one you guys just unveiled, I can't remember, last year or year before, which I've tried to do it with drywall screws and wire and baling twine, and Steve taught me how to put a penta post in the ground in the middle of a food plot to keep a scrape branch there. And I'm going to say my preponderance of activity was failure because my mock scrapes, if I tried to add a branch, never worked. You guys came out with it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called the Active Branch Bracket. Which one of you guys wants to tell us about? I know what it is, but tell the listeners and viewers what you have going on there.
I'll tell you a little bit about that. So, we had the same issue. We would experiment with different things because we have a lot of mature woods up where we're hunting, and sometimes you wouldn't have good spots to hang your dripper. You'd have mature trees without low branches, and you'd find a good spot to make a mock scrape or scrape activity, but it wasn't quite where you wanted it based on where your stand was and trying to position things and whatnot. So we did different things with 2x4s and different things trying to make, artificial interaction branches or licking branches, and playing around with different things and different brackets and stuff we found. We came up with the Active Branch, which has two holders on it. One to hold, you can position it anywhere you want. So if you have a tree that's in that perfect spot, or even if you have nothing, if you have an open field, you can put a 4x4 post in the ground and attach it to that. And it allows you to put an interaction branch and then a higher branch to hang the scrape dripper. So you can create kind of that whole setup exactly where you want it, the perfect spot in that perfect shooting lane. And if you do it right, if you get that perfect interaction site, those deer will just come and they love that spot, and they'll visit it sometimes year round, just because it kind of turns it into a hot spot. So we came up with that, and we launched that a few years ago, and that's been a really good product for us.
And that's what we're talking about. It's like, so you're creating a playground, and it works. If you guys don't believe me, go look at Steve's page, look at our page for Grown Big, Hunt 'em Big. He's got video proof of deer. My story was the first bracket I tried, and I told you guys this, the deer destroyed that thing in 3 days. Because there had never been an overhanging licking branch in this area where I was hunting, and they destroyed it. But Steve's got not only proof that it works, but also that it works year-round, and then there's tips on how to position these things. So if we're talking about creating this playground, okay, you can start with a couple scrape drippers. You can start with your own mock scrapes that you're putting active branches on if you don't have branches, and you can actually incorporate that with other ones. Like, so if you have your own, our problem is mostly softwoods. So birch, aspen, things like that. Deer love them. They rub them. They use them for licking branches, but that licking branch doesn't last long. And what I like to do is I cut red oak. I'll cut white oak. Hickory, I don't know why, but they don't like it so much here. They just don't use it as much. But apple branches work, but they also love to chew them. But I've got some old mature apple trees that I will cut limbs off of that. So that's kind of getting the apparatus onto the playground on some of these things. And then the most recent thing that you guys came out with, which everybody say, well, that's not that ingenious. I think it is, because these guys are going to explain it. It's called the Golden Rope. It's a 30-inch piece of rope that you would think, oh, I can go to the hardware store and buy a piece of rope. No, because if you do, it's going to be impregnated with kerosene or whatever they put in those things. This is a scent-free rope, and it comes. You can buy it in a kit. It comes with some of the scent. But what is the what was the precipice of that? What caused you guys saying, hey, let's see if these ropes will actually work in place of branches or in conjunction with branches?
Well, again, in the situation we were in, we'd be trying all sorts of different things, and we kind of stumbled on it with a piece of rope that was up and saw some interaction. We started messing around, trying different kinds of rope. We started working on the rope probably 15 years ago. Trying different kinds of ropes and different scents. We're always experimenting with different ways to dispense scent and to put stuff out there. And it was a lot of fun. We tried a lot of different scent blends, some of our existing, products at the time, and other blends that we just knew of different scents that worked good, and and different types of rope and whatnot. And it was really fun watching all the camera images. I mean, we'd see all kinds of animals come in. The bears would mess with them, the deer, they just loved them, and they would be visiting them all season long. So kind of keeping track of what was going on, and that actually helped set up sites where it helped bring the deer in. So it was good for field testing other things too, where we could see preferences and different things like that with different scents. And that was a lot of fun. And then playing around with the scents, it got kind of messy. Some of the stuff we came up with would really last a long time. And one time, my dad and I were up there, and we accidentally accidentally spilt some of the scent onto the exhaust manifold of the ATV we were using, and it was months. Every time we'd run that thing, you'd smell the scent because it would heat up it lasted so long, it would heat up, and you could just smell that ingredient that we had on there, just coming off of there. And we kept playing around with that, and we figured out, it was a little bit by accident, but my dad brought up an old nut jar that he had cleaned out, a big one from, one of the big warehouse stores. And we made our scent stuff in there, and it worked really good because then you could take the end of this rope and you could dip it right into the jar and kind of slosh it around and get that scent all over it, and not get it all over your hands, not get it all over the place. And then, you could mix up a big batch, and we'd have ropes all over the place. We could go and treat several of the ropes. So we didn't come out with the ropes. We knew it was a good product, but we didn't come out with it right away. One of the tough things is, for hunters, is we're kind of used to doing what we're doing, and we like to try new things, but sometimes if an idea is too abstract or too different, your timing might not be right. We've had some really good products over the years that we've launched, and it just didn't quite resonate with the hunters. They either didn't relate to it or the timing just wasn't right. So we kind of held it back for a while, and people were kind of starting to get used to this rope idea, and especially now with the methods of communication, and we got so many videos we can share on different platforms and whatnot. It was kind of the perfect time to do this. So last year we launched the Golden Rope, and we launched it in a kit that had that jar. It had 3 of those ropes in it, natural fiber ropes without any treatments or anything, natural rope. Came with the cable ties, and it came with the scent concentrate. So you could dump this concentrate into the jar, put in just a standard 16-ounce bottle of water, mix it up, and then that would be enough to treat these ropes several times throughout the season. And it was a really big hit. The amount of feedback, positive feedback we're getting from hunters and pitchers and stuff, it's awesome. And that's what it's really all about for us. We want to help hunters be more successful, and nothing's more gratifying than when you have those hunters sharing stories and sharing their success. And we had a small part in helping with that.
You had a big part. You had a big part in helping me kill my Wisconsin buck here, because we had that buck. Steve actually put the golden ropes out for us probably in October, and we got pictures of that deer on the cutty-back cameras. We had not seen him, and he's a solid 40s buck, and very nice buck for me for Wisconsin gun. And he showed up about 10 days before our season, and he was right by one of the ropes. So that is the scouting tool. So, scouting tools, I keep bringing this back to like the playground mentality, but that's the apparatus. But now you got to get the kids to the playground. Like the brackets and the drippers and the ropes are kind of like the swing set and the monkey bars and the slide. But now, the scents are what's actually attracting. The scents are the jelly bean bag that I throw in the middle of the playground to get the kids in there. And they're like, hey, look at all this stuff. And that's exactly kind of how it works. But the questions now are, and you did address them, Sam, already, but, and I think I know what your answer is going to be here, but I'm new at this. I want to try this. I'm going to, whether it's one or a combination, I go to store. For me, it's Fleet Farm, because I actually checked on the prices. You guys, this stuff is Trails End's like a bottle's like, you guys can correct me, like $7. Golden Stripe maybe $20. Special Golden Estrus in season like $14. It's great dripper, about $16. If you just want to do one or a couple of these things, it's not that expensive. But I go there and I'm standing there at Fleet Farm. Forgive the mention there because they're only a mile away from us. You've got so many scents. You've got Trails End. You've got Golden Rope. You've got Active Scrape. You got Golden Scrape. You got Golden Special Golden Estrus. You have Golden Estrus with Scent Reflex. What do you tell the guy or gal? Where do I start? Like if I want to try some of this stuff.
Standing in the aisle and you look at a set like we have behind us, it gets a little bit confusing because there's a lot of things there. And, sticking with the spirit of where we came from, we don't want to limit experimentation or trying different things. And one of the analogies I use is that it's kind of like fishing. When you go fishing, all of us like to try new lures. You see some cool looking lure at the store and you want to try it out. And we're always buying different things. But we also have our old trusties. You go out and some days you have a really good day of fishing. Some days are tough. And when you're having those tough days, you tend to go back to your old trusties. And, for us, just on the most simplest scale for scent, my old trusties are the Special Golden Estrus and the Trails End 307. But all this scrape stuff, all these different things, there's traditional times that people use scents, and then we see a lot of non-traditional things. So we never want to tell somebody you can't use a scent during a certain time. But traditionally, if you're scouting in the spring, setting up ropes and different things like that, those will work all year round. So you can kind of get the deer in the habit of being in the area, see what's going on. Sometimes if I have a little leftover scent from the year before, I might want to have fresh scent for the fall, but I might use it up in a dripper in the springtime just to get the deer hanging around that spot a little bit. Good way to use it up and get rid of the stuff you didn't use. As you get into the late summer months, traditionally you wouldn't start using drippers and scrape products until you're kind of getting to that pre-rut time as they're starting to look for the does and whatnot. But that said, I know guys who put Special Golden Estrus in a dripper in August, and some people would tell you that's absolutely not what you should do. You should wait till rut. But some of those guys shoot huge bucks right at the beginning of bow season every year doing that. Other guys will get negative reactions putting an estrus scent out too soon. You got to kind of experiment and see what's going on. If the deer are under different kinds of pressures, they might behave different. So it's always good to try different things out, and if something's not working, sometimes it's good to bring something new in to freshen it up. Traditionally, if you're just like to go out for a gun opener, you're not hunting all season long, kind of the perfect setup is to get a dripper set up going around MEA weekend, that mid to late October to get the deer hanging around, kind of get them primed in your hunting spot for gun opener. And then go out there, and I like to put out some Trails End 307 or some Special Golden Estrus or whatever your favorite scent is, to try to kind of have something new and exciting while you're sitting on stand to have them come in. If you're a super serious hunter, you're bow hunting all season and then all the way through the rut, there's going to be different approaches as you go through the season. Early on, traditionally, you might use Trails End is a really good option early on because it has kind of the sexual appeal, but then it has curiosity and hunger appeal as well. So it kind of hits on all those different things. So that works really good all season long. Non-estrus doe urine can be good early on because it just makes it seem like the does are hanging around and the bucks, even though they're not quite ready yet, they're going to be keeping an eye on where those does are at for later in the season. The scrape stuff is real good. If you're going to be running a scrape dripper for a longer period of time, a lot of hunters will start off with the active scrape, which has doe urine with estrus secretions, buck urine, and other ingredients in it that simulate, thus the name, an active scrape, and it'll get them hanging around. And then if the action starts slowing down a little bit, come in with golden scrape, where it's got the super premium golden estrus scent in it and other ingredients, and kind of refresh that and make it exciting again. We get bored with the same thing over and over again. So if you got a way to spice it up and make it more exciting. And that's where we have a lot of these different products, and kind of allows you more tools to do some of that.
That is fascinating stuff. Another example and another company that does not need to be mentioned, but I'm going to mention them anyways. This is kind of like going to Quick Trip. When I used to drink soda, I gave it up, by the way. You would go, I'd get Mountain Dew, Diet Dew, and I'd put a little cherry Pepsi in there. I did this last year with that. So basically, I had some leftover, it's the stuff with the scent reflex in it, golden estrus. And I had that, some left over, and then I had about a half a bottle of Trail's End, and it was sitting in my barn. And I wanted to put something on one of these ropes, and I did that. And for whatever reason, that scent really stuck to the rope longer, I think. Is it because what is this? Is the scent reflex kind of like a enhancer? Isn't that how it works?
It's exactly how I would put it. You know, we were working on some different things, and we were coming up with, it kind of started, we were coming up with ingredients to enhance our synthetic scents to make them work better. And, you know, we came across some blends and stuff that really worked good for that. And we thought, well, geez, if it works so good for that, why not try it with the natural scents as well? And we did. And it's amazing because it enhances, it gives it a boost. But then it really lasts a long time. If you get that stuff on your hands, you're gonna
exactly.
No,
That's what I didn't get too much. I got it on my gloves, but and that's a question I want to ask Paul here in a second. But what I did is I'm very stingy on the stuff. I don't use the whole bottle. I know you guys say take a whole bottle. I cut it with water, and especially on the ropes. And I don't even just dunk the end of the rope in there. I'll soak that rope in there. But I've got probably at least 20 ounces of water in there. So I can take the rope, soak it down in there, and I might leave it overnight. And very rarely have to reapply it. But Paul, let's talk about, because I know it's extraordinarily important not to just schlep out there and hang this up without me wearing my tennis shoes that I just tended my chickens with. You know, the scent control, let's talk about that for a minute. On what is your approach when working in like a playground situation, as far as the scent killing approach that you take with whether it's during hunting season or during the off season?
Well, I will say that I've probably gotten sloppier over the years. I was better about this stuff when I was younger and had a little more time and that type of thing. But I mean, the best way to do this stuff is kind of what you're alluding to, Dan, is certainly to, anytime you're going to be out there in the deer woods, really, is to put on your rubber boots. Rubber boots are a must, right? And I like, rubber gloves. If you're going to be out there touching stuff, rubber gloves are the best thing to do, right? Because just like Sam said, you want to make sure that those deer feel like there's nobody around. And that's the beauty of like the Magnum strike, things like that. But obviously when it comes to hunting, then, everything has to be done. And that's back to like we were talking, clothes wash for your clothes, the scent killer gold on your clothes. All the body wash and shampoo when you're getting ready, the deodorant, all those things. And if you're coming right from work, I tell people, you could use a washcloth or one of our wipes to wipe off whatever you built up during the day over work, even though you showered that morning with all these things and you're clean, your clothes are really clean. You get out there and by your truck and you're undressing and redressing in your hunting clothes, wipe down first. Do pretty much everything you can possibly think of to make yourself smell like nothing while you're out there.
And that's one thing Clancy always used to say. He'd say, you don't have to do it all, but he said every little thing that you do, every little thing. Like for me, it was the original scent killer spray, the stuff that came in. I think you have the white bottles on my release, because my release I'd shoot that in the summer all day, every day. That thing got really sweated up, and he goes, well, what do you think? How much scent is on that? How much scent do you think's on your ball cap, which I wear hats all the time? What do you think about that? And it's like every little thing. And then to your point with wearing rubber gloves, I actually went online and found their food grade black gloves that are scent free, and I bought a whole case of those things. And I just keep them outside, and I use those specifically for, if I'm making mock scrapes, or if actually 3 years ago, I did a scent drag. I got to send you guys that picture. I killed a buck with a scent drag, and just very meticulous not to touch anything, because you still got to get the stuff out of the packaging. A scent key wick. You touch that with your fingers, well, you kind of just defeated the purpose, because you just put in. If I put 3 molecules of human scent on there, it's still going to be human scent. I don't care how much deer urine I dumped on it or soaked it with, but those are the things, simple things, simple little things. Deer Talk Now is brought to you by 10-point crossbows and the all-new TX 440. This compact crossbow features new twin riser technology as well as a rail-less design to provide superior accuracy. Coming in at only 28 inches long and 6.5 inches wide, the TX 440 packs a powerful punch in a compact, ergonomic design. For more information, visit 10pointcrossbows.com. Sam, what do you think on a small property? I'm always talking in 40s or 80 acre properties. Can I overdo it with mock scrapes, or is there no limit? I mean, can I put too much out there to where I'm defeating my purposes, or have you found that it's actually not bad as long as deer are coming through a certain area?
I think as long as you're getting good results, you're good. I know for a fact, just from some wild experiments, as I won't get into detail, but some wild experiments we've done over the years, there is a point where you can overdo it and it's unnatural. But that said, I mean, if you're using the products as directed, I mean, you can put out several scrape locations. I mean, a buck will make a scrape line a lot of times and have several scrapes. So even on a 40 or an 80, you can set up several scrape locations. You know, at her property, we'll set up locations by, you know, at each stand, and sometimes even at a single stand location, I might put out 2 or 3. And it's interesting because you put out 2 or 3, you do your scouting, you look everything over, and you think you got really good spots. All of them are really good spots, but for whatever reason, there's one in particular that they'll really be attracted to and really like, because whatever conditions, whatever they're seeing when they're checking that area out, that's just what really appeals to them. And even over the years, if I keep running those same 3 spots, it seems like for years and years, that same spot will be the hot spot. And I don't know if it's because they leave scent behind or the interactions that have occurred, or there's just something, you know, you might like a certain room in your house better than other rooms, or a certain spot at the park better. I mean, I think it's just a lot of factors that come into play, and we understand a lot about deer and how they interact and what they like, but there's so much we don't understand too, and that's where experimenting and seeing what works, and every situation is different. You know, something that works in my backyard where the deer are used to people being around isn't going to be the same as when I get up in our deer woods where they're not used to people being around. You know, there's predation up there and different things like that, so you get different behavior in different locations. So you do have to experiment and try different things for the area you're in and see what works best, but that's what we're trying to do, is offer all the tools to do that, and again, create your ultimate trophy buck playground.
That's a good way of putting it, because you can't force it. That's one thing I've learned. You can't, just because I put up a mock scrape and a stand that I think is good. It's just like putting a camera up. It's like putting a camera up saying, oh, I'm going to get all these pictures. Like, well, no deer coming through here anyways. If they are coming through there, you will probably get them to stop again, because if it's part of their routine. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's so much information. And you guys have the best website. It's easy to remember, wildlife.com. If you want to check out any of these products, and also they have tons of background testimonials and information there, as well as their social media pages. So check those out as well. And I could list a who's who of the celebrities that use this stuff: Melissa Bachman, the Lakoskis, Steve Bartilla. There's so many people, the Kiskis. There's so many people that have used these products and killed big deer, and they're not just saying it. They've got the receipts, and the receipts are in videos. So that's some cool stuff you guys can check out. Thank you both guys, Paul and Sam, for joining us today.
Absolutely, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, that is it for this episode of Deer Talk. Now, don't go away yet. All I'm asking you guys to do is like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. It is an incredible run we've had. We've got 40,000 listeners / viewers every week. One thing I'm going to offer you guys right now, that's because you stayed till the end. If you still want to pick up our calendar for this year, you say, well, why do I want a calendar that's half the year over? Because it's got the rut predictions in there. You can put this in your camp. $9, that's it. So tell Susie, who you're going to contact, you're going to get it from us, $9, free shipping. I'm going to send that to you. We're going to send that to you if you order it right now. It's Charlie Alsheimer's photos, my beloved friend, rest his soul, all his photos in there, and his proven algorithm. It's at the Deer and Deer Hunting website, really easy to follow, deeranddeerhunting.com. Or if you're want to head over to Facebook, you can just click on the shop link right there, and go right there and get it. $9, free shipping. You heard it from me. Tell them I sent you. So for my friends at Wildlife Research Center, I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you again for joining us for Deer Talk Now. We will catch you next week, Thursday, for another brand new episode. The Deer Talk Now podcast is brought to you by Mossberg, Wildlife Research Center, Traditions Firearms, Outdoor Edge Knives, Hoyt Archery, and 10 Point Crossbow.